Megaman X, a masterclass in game design that is the Super Nintendo's answer to the question, what's next for the Blue Bomber? What can be said about Mega Man X that hasn't been said before? It is a far from controversial opinion to call Mega Man X a masterpiece. Instead of trying to retread ground that so many others have already traveled, I'm going to try to take a slightly different approach and focus more on what Mega Man X means to me and what I personally enjoy about it. I'm going to try to focus more on my thoughts on various aspects of the game, but I may go more in depth in certain areas. While I don't consider myself particularly good at platformers, as some people are, I immensely enjoyed the experience of playing the role of this iconic hero. For me, Mega Man X1 is my favorite of the series, as it is the biggest jump forward and it's a great callback to the past. There's so much about this game I adore, so let's jump, and shoot, and dash, in. The classic Mega Man games start you off at the stage select screen, where you're able to dive right in, choosing whichever boss your heart desires to fight first. While I love this approach, Mega Man X takes a moment to let you know this isn't your standard adventure. While not super ideal for repeat playthroughs, the intro level of Central Highway sets the tone for the rest of the game, giving you an instant taste of the action and what's to come. The detailed environments, the fantastic adrenaline-filled background music, and the destructible environments are all presented to you from the start. This isn't the old Mega Man, this is Mega Man X. The original tended to be a bit slower and more methodical, but X is on another level of mobility. And you don't even have the dash boots yet. The intro level does a great job of showing you what this new world has to offer, from the large detailed enemies to the wall climbing to evolving stage hazards. Throughout the level there are these flying enemies that are crushing the ground before you, creating holes in the floor that you have to either jump over or destroy them before they create the holes to begin with, which really shows what can happen dynamically in the levels. When you defeat this mini-boss, the ground collapses and it forces you to wall climb for the first time. Towards the end of the level, there's these cars that come flying at you, and you get a chance to destroy them with your buster, but you can destroy the top part of the car and jump on the bottom part safely. This shows the dynamic nature of the game and how things can happen in a little bit of a different way than you're used to. At a certain point in the level, a spaceship comes down and ends up dropping enemies at you, and after destroying a couple of them, you get ambushed by this evil Reploid named Vile, who's riding in this awesome mech suit. I always thought Vile was pretty cool, but I also really thought mech suits were cool, so that probably helped him out a lot. The battle against Vile here is scripted, you see, and no matter what you do, Vile will either capture you or destroy you outright. There's no walls to climb here, so he's able to just body you from the side. The game tries not to let you die too, and has Vile sort of try not hitting you when you're almost dead, and instead tries to catch you with these little orbs that he shoots at you. That's his main goal, to capture you. When Vile does, he takes this chance to taunt Mega Man and tell him how weak and pathetic he is. However, Zero comes in and one-shots Vile, sending him packing. The way he's presented is so cool, like an action hero saving the day. It makes you think, wow, Zero is just so cool, I wish I was like him. And lo and behold, eventually, you will be. Zero heads off to look for Sigma's fortress. X, on the other hand, has the Mavericks to deal with. I always really loved the intro stage. It's brief and it's action-packed. It feels a bit like a warm-up that you need to get started. I always really loved this intro. It's brief and action-packed, teaches you the mechanics of the game, and shows you what there is to offer right off the bat in a small, concise package. I love the music in this level, though I will say I love every single piece of music in this game, so that's just gonna have to be me being a broken record. Without further ado, let's move on. After the introduction, you're brought to the stage select screen, which instantly brings back the feelings of classic Mega Man. But wait, there's more. As you move your cursor around the screen, you will notice there's a map in the center which gives you a visual of each area. You even get to select an option to see information about each one of the Mavericks. This is a great enhancement from the original. It feels familiar, yet evolved. You can really feel how this is the natural progression of the series. Mega Man X does away with the Cut Man and Guts Man of yore, opting to replace the men with beasts. Instead of Bubble Man, you have Launch Octopus. Instead of Wind Man, you have Storm Eagle. Instead of Guts Man, you have Armored Armadillo. You get the picture. X really does bridge the gap to this new style. It makes sure you remember the core aspects of the series, but changes them enough to make them feel fresh and exciting. Nothing symbolizes this point more, and more quickly, than entering your first stage. The theme that plays when you select a boss is a 16-bit metal version of the stage select theme from the classic Megaman games. Well, the most remembered one. There are a few different ones. This game makes sure to hit those familiar notes, making you feel right at home while you're also on a new adventure. I'm struggling against the urge to go through each stage and talk about what I like in each one, but this kind of goes against my vision for this video, as I meant for it to be more of a general letter of my feelings towards the game, but it does feel natural to run through some of them. Let's rewind a bit. My natural inclination is to always do Chill Penguin stage first. This is a common path, as this is the stage that contains the Dash Boots upgrade, and while not required for most of the Mavericks, it is incredibly useful for all of them. In fact, the Dash Boots are so useful, it almost feels mandatory to do Chill Penguin stage first if you want to have a good time, or, be able to finish the game quickly. I don't think I've ever played the game without getting the Dash Boots first. Capcom knew this, because while doing Chill Penguin stage, it is impossible to miss the power-up. It is put directly in the path in front of you in a narrow corridor. You cannot jump through it or get around it, at least not any way that I know how. The other power-up capsules are mostly hidden or placed out of the way of the main path, so you have to find them. Some of them are quite tricky locations to get to. I even remember that in the remake for the PSP they rearranged some of them to make them easier to get. The funny thing is about this though, even though most people would tell you to do Chill Penguin first to get the boots, I did not have someone to tell me this. And back when I played this game, I was definitely in the single digits of my years, so I did not have access to the internet, let's just say, and I still came to the conclusion that Chill Penguin is the first boss, and I don't remember ever doing it any other way. As a kid, I almost always beat the bosses in the same order, even though it's probably not the most optimal way to do it. The order that I can remember was Chill Penguin, Flame Mammoth, Storm Eagle, Spark Mandrill, and then the rest of them are kind of in a different order depending on my mood, but the first four are almost always the same, generally in that order. Definitely would always be Chill Penguin first. Since I didn't always play the levels in the optimal order, I'd always have to go back through and get whatever I missed in previous times, which is fine because a lot of the times that meant I get to play through the stage in their alternate variants, which is one of my favorite things about Mega Man X. When you defeat certain bosses or meet other criteria, I'm actually not 100% sure how it works enough to say confidently, some of the stages have changes that are affected by other stages. For instance, defeating Storm Eagle's stage causes the airship to crash into Spark Mandrill's stage, cutting off the power and making the stage have power outages. Defeating the Chill Penguin makes Flame Mammoth's stage incredibly easy by cooling off all of the magma in the level and making it safe to walk on, removing most of the challenge from the level. I like this because it makes it possible to tune the difficulty of the stages by doing other stages first, but also allows you to increase your challenge by not doing certain stages. Defeating Launch Octopus floods Sting Chameleon's stage, which allows you to get to places you normally couldn't get to. While some of the stage changes are very minor, it does add a level of interconnectivity to the levels that makes them feel like they are having an impact on each other. I feel like X1 does this the best, but that might be more of a familiarity thing so far as I can tell. I love having my actions and choices during gameplay affect stage layouts and difficulty, and Mega Man X is a masterclass of replayability, allowing you to mix and match which power-ups you decide to get and how hard you want your run to be, all by the choices you make during the playthrough, not some menu at the start of the game. Looking back, however, I do see it to be a bit of a flaw, having the dash boots be so integral to the movement mechanics of the game, because while it doesn't force you to do Chill Penguin stage first, it does, however, do so if you wish to have the dash boots, which makes the game feel amazing to play, by the way. The dash boots add so much momentum and speed to the game, and it would feel kind of sluggish without it. This flaw is remedied in Mega Man X2, where you start the game with the dash boots and instead you get an air dash as an upgrade, which in my opinion is a great change to make. This lets you start the game with the speed without having to do a certain boss first. This might be my only critique of Mega Man X1. I want to take a moment to talk about something. While beating Chill Penguin makes Flame Mammoth's stage easier, the ice shotgun is not his weakness. It is actually Storm Eagle's weapon. But wait, there's more to it. The interconnectivity of X strikes again, because Boomer Kawanger's weapon can cut off his trunk, causing him to be unable to move the belts or lob oil at you. That is 3 interactions with one boss. Having different weapons and trying them out is rewarded in Mega Man X. It's not just a standard weakness, but rather interactions that can change how the fight plays out. The game is full of things like this. For instance, in Sting Chameleon's stage, there's a section where the boulders are falling from the sky, and little earthquakes can happen that make you have to dodge rocks. But if you go up to the top beforehand and beat the mini-boss guarding a capsule, not only do you get an upgraded armor piece, but this also makes it so that there's no longer any falling boulders below. I could go on and on about the changes and the little details that happen in this game, and it's one of the reasons I love it, and it's so darn replayable. Another really cool interaction is hitting the armored armadillo and making his armor fall off with Spark Mandrill's weapon. There's just something I love about every level, like being able to pilot your own ride armor in Chill Penguin and Sting Chameleon stage. It's just so cool being able to have your own mech battles, especially after getting your butt handed to you by Vile in the beginning of the game. There's also just a lot of scenarios that allow for different special weapons to shine. In Armored Armadillo's stage, you get to do a high-octane minecart ride thing, where it destroys enemies for you and you basically only have to attend to the ones that are in the air. I always love that you could shoot weapons as you're going and watch them move with you for a while before you lose them. You could even make the game lag a little bit. Chef's kiss. In Flame Mammoth stage, I love that you can freeze the magma, but I also love that there's a spot in the ceiling you can get into that you're definitely not supposed to, because it gets you to this super glitchy area which lets you find an item that looks like this. I found this as a kid, and it was so darn cool. Another thing would be trying to see how far through Launch Octopus's stage I could get without actually being in the water. Just little things like that. It's just a lot of fun. I really loved skipping the entire level of Boomer Kawanger and never doing it properly in my life, because I always just go intangible and run through it all as fast as I can. I just love how in Storm Eagle's level there's these battery things you can destroy and you can blast out the windows in this building and the boss fight happens on top of a crashing plane. Man, this game is so cool. I love Spark Mandrill's stage, and I wonder what it looks like with the lights on, because I always do Storm Eagle first. But it's just so darn cool that you can really mess with the levels like this. Even the mini-boss is completely gutted since it doesn't have electricity to attack you. As a kid, I didn't even know this boss had a lightning attack for a long time because I always did Storm Eagle beforehand. I found it out later when I was doing a variation run. Sting Chameleon stage was always fun with the flooded parts and the secret robot boss on the top that I didn't know about for a long time. I just find these things an accident, and that's the thing I really liked about this game. I just tried things and found stuff all the time. I don't know. Finding these things out on my own as a kid is just amazing. I'm not sure if it would feel the same way if I played it as an adult and just had a guide telling me where everything was, making it feel like a checklist instead of an adventure. Charging weapons. Mega Man could charge his Mega Buster to unleash a powerful charge shot, but X, on the other hand, after getting a Buster Part upgrade from Dr. Light, can charge all of his special weapons as well. Mega Man could charge a few of his special weapons in the classic games, but not all of them. This blew my mind as a kid. Every weapon could be charged to not only unleash a more powerful variant, but sometimes completely unique variants of the weapons. The Mega Buster was a bigger, more powerful shot, but the special weapons are essentially secondary attacks entirely, and sometimes even more than that. The charged weapons feel incredible, almost broken. Once you get these bad boys, X feels like he's on another level. This game does an amazing job of making you feel overpowered as heck. Some of these abilities are downright insane. For instance, as I mentioned earlier, having the charged version of Sting Chameleon's weapon completely trivializes Boomer Kawanger's level, where you normally have to be careful and stealth through it. You can essentially run through this entire level and many other areas of the game with this ability, and if that doesn't work for you, you could always use Armored Armadillo's invincible bubble shield ability that blocks most projectiles. I love these weapons because they let you to some extent build your own challenge and let you go on a power trip if you so desire. Or, just have a cool little ice skateboard and go for a ride. Which does let you traverse quite quickly, and when used right can also be used to gain some extra air. I gushed about the charged versions of the special weapons, but even the regular variants of them are incredibly useful, from the homing missiles from Launch Octopus to the rapid damaging flame Flame Mammoth's flamethrower. There are just so many different situations that allow you to have each weapon shine. This is the DNA that makes Mega Man X so replayable, because there are just so many different ways you can approach every challenge. I love the bosses in Mega Man X, and while I'm quite fond of my classic bosses and their themes, instead of having standard humanoid bots for the most part, we now have awesome robot animals that the X games stick to for the foreseeable future, giving a lot of variety in the character designs. I also love that the stages in the X games fit into that feeling of evolution that we talked about earlier. When you finally reach a boss, it starts off with that familiar hallway that leads to the boss chamber, just like the classic games. But in this one, each boss room has some sort of gimmick for the most part. The Chill Penguin has this hook on the ceiling that he uses to change the wind direction. The Flame Mammoth has this conveyor belt on the ground, and the room is extra wide. Storm Eagle's arena has death pits on each side and is on a crashing airship. Launch Octopus's arena is underwater. Okay, that's not a huge thing. This was done before, even as early as Bubble Man's stage, but I guess it's not really a unique thing, but it is something different. The rest of the boss arenas are fairly standard, but I do enjoy the variety, and at least they all have some good visual flair. I just love the designs of the bosses, and the boss battles are quite varied in how you approach them. I also just love the weaknesses and how some of them have secondary weaknesses, or you can visibly see that you're hurting them more, like how you can freeze Spark Mandrill in place, or you can visibly burn the Chill Penguin. It's just cool seeing all the detail and love they put into this game. X was not the first in the series to have upgrades in items. In the classic games we had them from the get-go. The Magnet Beam in Mega Man 1, Item 1 through 3 in Mega Man 2, and the various rush adapters in the games after that. There was even a shop in some of the later entries that used bolts as currency. In Mega Man X we don't have currency, but we do have a plethora of upgrades and secrets strewn about. Instead of having disposable E-Tanks, X features reusable E-Tanks that you can refill with the extra life pickups that you get. Meaning, if you are at full health when you pick up a health pickup, that energy is instead put into one of your 4 E-Tanks that you can acquire. In addition to these 4 E-Tanks, there are hidden life tanks in the levels, where you can find them and increase your health slightly when you pick one up. You are rewarded for going off the beaten path and exploring the levels, or attempting to do skilled maneuvers. This adds to the difficulty customization since you can intentionally forego picking up any of these items. I've touched on this before, but there are also Dr. Light capsules that X can step into to get a piece of armor. These are optional for the most part besides the dash boots, which are all but forced upon you. Like I said, I think this game kind of guides you towards Chill Penguin stage and really wants you to get those dash boots. Some of the capsules are avoidable and are off the main path, one of which halves the damage that X receives. Combine this with not getting any of the other upgrades and you're in for a challenging ride. I always liked the system of scouring levels for upgrades, and some of them require you to have certain bosses defeated before you can get to them, or some insanely skilled timing. I've seen the speedruns. If you get all the upgrades in the game, all of the heart tanks, all of the E-tanks, and all the capsules, you can climb a wall at the end of Armored Armadillo stage a few times and end up getting something called the Hadouken from Street Fighter. I didn't know about this as a kid for many years. I learned about it much later in life. This ability lets you do a one-hit KO move that'll instantly kill any boss, yes, even the final boss. However, you can only do this move when you're at max health. This was an incredibly cool reward that you get for completing the game 100%, and even cooler how secret it is. Like, there was no way you could stumble on this one by accident. You have to climb this wall and die 5 times, I believe, to get to it. The requirements to get to the capsule itself, even after doing everything else, is so obtuse that it was probably meant to sell you the magazine or to get you to call one of those helplines. Once you've defeated all 8 Mavericks, the center of the stage changes along with the music. It's go time. Now is your last chance to go back in and get any of the final things that you missed. Once you're ready to go, click on this ugly mug and get transported into Sigma's fortress. Once you arrive at Sigma's fortress, you meet up with Zero once again. After a brief talk with Zero, he runs off ahead. This fortress knows that you have all the weapons now, and lets you put them to good use. I'm gonna be honest, when I was a kid, I usually only played up to this point. I would do the 8 Mavericks and then quit playing there because I wasn't super good at the fortress levels. In fact, I really was never good at any of the Wily stages either. I usually would just start over and do the Robot Masters again and again. And again. That's not to say that I've never completed these stages, it's just more of that I found it more fun to fight the Robot Masters than to do the final stages. Now that we're here though, let's get the metal to the gears. Once you get to the boss hall, you'll hear a battle already in session between Zero and Vile. You storm into the boss chamber to see that Zero has been captured, and now you get to rematch with Vile, the mecha boss that you fought in the beginning of the game. But you've grown, you're stronger now. He still beats you. Well, this fight is scripted once again, and you're just gonna lose. However, Zero has your back once again, and also Vile's back, and saves the day by breaking free from his capture and sacrificing himself, destroying Vile and himself forever. Well, actually, Vile survives, but the right armor is destroyed, making it so you can actually defeat him in combat this time. Vile is much more agile in this form, but he is weak to the homing missile, and if you just spam that a little bit, he's no problem at all. After you put an end to Vile once and for all, you get to say your last goodbye to Zero. One cool thing about this scene is that if you didn't get the Super Mega Ultra Super Buster upgrade from earlier in the game, you get one from Zero here, the Zero Buster. I always thought the Zero was just so cool, and I always wished that I could play as Zero someday, and I do eventually get that dream to happen. He just seemed so cool. Capcom really knew what they were doing when they made Zero. After this horrific battle, you get to move on and battle some of the other robot masters. Funny enough, X is also a callback to the original Mega Man game. Once again, each fortress has a handful of robot masters to fight instead of just a straight gauntlet room towards the end. This is how they did it in the original Mega Man game. I'm not going to go too in detail on these levels, mostly because I'm trying not to just linearly go through and explain what happens in the game, but I will talk about a few notable things. This spider boss was the bane of my childhood. I always found this thing so frustrating. The way that it moves and the speed that it comes down from the ceiling always left me guessing. I was never fast enough to track it and not get hit by it. Generally, it was a mix of luck, E-tanks, and me using the right weapons to try to get cheap shots on it. I will say that to this day I'm awful at this fight. The other ones just don't give me nearly as much trouble. Sigma, on the other hand, he's a handful for sure. In recent playthroughs, I just messed around trying to hit him with the Hadouken, because I'm not really good at this fight, and especially because you have to battle his dog first every single time that you die, so it just takes a long time. Sigma's a pretty cool boss who has multiple forms, and the boss fight is kind of long, so if you do keep dying, you're gonna have to do the whole thing over again, including climbing this long tunnel, so get used to it because I had to climb it over and over again. Victory is eventually found, and Mega Man X is now complete, and the world is safe forever, and will never be in danger again. There you have it, Mega Man X, just an absolute gem of a game that I adore. I find myself coming back to it every few years. It's one of those games that even with an adult eye, I can appreciate it for what it is. This game is certifiably amazing. There is a certain amount of nostalgia at play here, having Mega Man X1 being my favorite, but it is the one that I played the most. From start to finish, Mega Man X has been a game I will never forget. Thanks for making it to the end of the video. If you want to see more videos just like this one in the future, consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. And if you want to support me financially, consider joining me on Patreon or the YouTube membership program. Thanks for watching. I'd love to hear some of your stories in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next video.